Good morning. Welcome to the Cambridge Power Platform user group. This meeting is really special for us. We are celebrating National Space Day, which is even more special because SpaceX have just managed to both take off and land the very big Starship. So well done to SpaceX. Big shout out to those guys. Very big success there. So National Space Day, there's a lot of theme stuff coming up. First speaker is going to be Serge Luca, who I'll introduce you to in a moment. Just a quick word to our sponsors, Casper 365, SharePoint Automation Platform. If we jump straight to our first speaker. So here's some information for you. If you don't know who Serge is, well, where have you been, frankly? I'm a huge fan, and I remember it seems like a lifetime ago, Serge, when we first met on my birthday a couple of years ago, but made my birthday very, very special. I've been a fan for some years.
2 years ago, yes.
Yeah. I've been a fan for some years and followed your blog and all kinds of stuff online. So really delighted to have you back, especially to talk about these, business process management. It's really important that we understand how this is coming together and how we can use the Power Platform for this kind of advanced tooling, really. And so I'm literally just going to hand straight over to you, Serge, and let you take over.
So thank you, Sharon, and welcome to this advanced session, I would say. So the title of the session is Advanced Business Process Management with Power Automate and Dr. Flow. So I don't have to introduce myself, except that I live in Brussels. And sorry for my French accent. And I hope that you will understand my French-English. Usually people do. And so you know that the Power Platform targets a wide range of audience. So from citizen developer to professional developer. And in between, you have IT, for instance. So many people can create application with this Power Platform. However, sometimes you need some advanced skills because there are some issue with the Power Platform, and we'll get through this issue. And the application I've created is more for a professional developer. However, as an end user or citizen developer, you can use that for your own project, right? So let's start. So anytime you want to use a technology like the Power Platform, for instance, in a project, you need to know its limitation. So this has been 4 years that I talk about the limitation of Power Platforms, and some things don't change, and they are important. Like, since the early beginning, a flow duration is 30 days. So there's no way to have a flow that can run for longer than 30 days. So I've tried different patterns. They work, but they are not easy to maintain and to implement. And that's why I did create a tool called the BPM Toolkit that I will describe here. I already described this tool quickly last year for the same user group, but the tool has evolved, right? So that's why I showed that again. Flow approval duration practically is 30 days. And you know that in many business processes take more than 30 days to complete. Some people wait for more than 30 days to approve a task. Okay, so we need more than that. And very important as well is that in Power Automate, we don't have a state machine. And basically a state machine is a way to go forward or backward in a business process. Okay, at some time in the business process, you need to be able to get back to the beginning or skip some step, for instance, right? This is basic behavior for the business, but it's not that easy to implement in Power Automate. Again, that's why I put that in the generic way in the BPM Toolkit. The application lifecycle management and DevOps story in the Power Platform is still quite weak. So deploying code or application from dev to test to UAT to production is still not very efficient. Even though things get better, especially recently, Microsoft introduced the concept of data source in environment variable. So now you can easily deploy SharePoint flow, for instance, from one environment to another environment. So SharePoint flow linked to one side to a different side, right? So this deployment is now easy. However, the ALM story is still kind of weak. Very important for the business is if you have a long and sensitive business process that take a while to complete with many actors, If for any reason the business process is stuck in the middle, you need to be able to restart it from where it stopped, right? So you don't want to restart the whole thing. You need to restart from where it stopped. Otherwise, you're going to ask many people to approve something that they already did in the past, for instance. So you cannot do that in Power Automate. So that's why I put that in the BPM Toolkit. And just for your information, the BPM Toolkit is written with Power Automate. So you will have the full source code. Also very important, API call limitation. This is very important now. If you deploy complex application, mission critical application that run 24 hours a day, every day, they might be limited by what we call API call limitation. So in the Power Automate flow, there is a limitation in the number of actions you can call, basically, depending on your type of license. So if you have an Office 365 license, you will be limited to 2,000 calls per day. Okay, so if you have a complex business process with many flows, and this flow are called all the time, you will go beyond the limitation. So you can buy add-ins. So you don't have to go into the premium licensing. Sorry to talk about licensing, but I know it's confusing, but you need to know that. But you can still buy add-in to be able to call more action. There's no custom task form in Power Automate. So if you ask someone to approve, they will get a default approval form. So you cannot easily customize that, like displaying information coming from different data sources. So that is something which is also possible in the BPM Toolkit. And very important, there's no task delegation in Power Automate. What does that mean? That means that if you have a complex business process, so let's say you ask someone to approve something, and this person goes to holidays or is sick, I mean, this person might become the bottleneck of your business process, right? So you must be able to automatically delegate your task to another person. And you should be able to say, I'm delegating all my tasks from this day to that day to this person. And the system should take that into account automatically, right? And when the delegation expires, then your task should be reassigned to yourself. That is what the business expects. I mean, and we don't have that in Power Automate. And to achieve that kind of thing, people buy tools like Nintex or K2. No, K2 is part of Nintex or Webcon. I mean, they are expensive. They're a very nice tool. So that's why my customer wanted an alternative, which is the BPM Toolkit, which, by the way, is free. So I don't get any money from this. So let's illustrate that on the business point of view with a case study. One of my customers, which is a big multinational company, European company, want to implement and automate the HR request. So they have 60 types of HR requests. An HR request could be something like, I want to take a part-time, or I want to get into pre-retirement. And these requests have to go to a complex pipeline that I will illustrate later. There are 40 types of workflows, not flows, workflows, business process to approve that. A business process can take a year to complete, not 30 days, I mean, a year, sometime. Supervisor and user want to see exactly where they are in the business process. If you use flow, okay, you start a flow, you don't know where you are in the flow. The developer can see where the flow is, but not the business people, right? Not all stakeholders. So we need that. That's very important. Same for HR officers. They want a dashboard of all the business process. They want to see which business process is late. Where are the bottleneck? They want to search. They want to filter. We don't have that. I mean, so don't reinvent that. I did it for you. Example: an employee in Paris want to take a leave request for medical reason. Then the request will go to the first step, which is it must be validated by a doctor. And this means it's very sensitive information because HR information are the most sensitive information in the company. And then the legal department would check if this is a right or just an option. Then it's validated by the line manager, so the employee line manager. Then by HR first line support in Paris. Then by supervisor in Paris. And then by supervisor in Brussels. And then by the director. And then the decision is taken, a document, an official document is generated, stored in a secure location, and all the stakeholders are notified. That's normal business for them. We've tried that with Power Automate. We could not implement that. So I had to create something, which is the BPM Toolkit. So I did create my own workflow engine with Power Automate on top of Power Automate. Let's take a look at that. So that's the BPM Toolkit, which is 100% written with the Power Platform. So there's no .NET code. It's free, it's open source, it's on GitHub. I will give you the link. Business can create workflow. They don't have to write code. They can go to a specific SharePoint list and they can create their workflow steps and specify the actors. They can also specify the go-to state machine, right? State machine, yes, state machine. Also, when the business process starts, it can still change. You can still change it if you want. There's no workflow duration limit. There's no limitation at all. I don't use the out-of-the-box Power Automate approval. So I use my own custom approval. And this opens the door to anything. This makes my life simple. Task delegation is native in the platform. When people get a form where they can approve, you can customize this form. You can do whatever you want. You can display business data if you want. That's possible. Security is also important. So if the company has a kind of permission matrix, and for instance, when you ask HR to do something, there's not just one HR. You have several teams in HR. Some team can manage some specific requests because some requests are more sensitive than others, right? So you must be able to design your permission matrix and put that in the tool, and the tool needs to understand that. So that's part of the tool. It's visual, you will see that. If you want, you can have an integration with robotic process. So the BPM Toolkit is compatible with any robotic process, like the Power Automate desktop, and you don't need premium license. So I don't want to be too technical, but I create a pattern that I call a case management pattern that describes basically how it works. And the idea is, for each type of request, you create a SharePoint list or a Dataverse table or whatever you want. And this request stored in this list will be taken over by the BPM Toolkit, right? So this is this thing in blue here. And then in the BPM Toolkit, we have a set of generic system table. Case, for instance, so your request become a standard case. And since you've defined a workflow, so the business has defined a workflow, in the BPM Toolkit, there is a component called workflow generator that will generate steps in a list called case lifecycle. See, so this is basically the workflow. You have steps, new case, new request, new case, and steps are generated. And depending on the workflow, you can have more or less steps and different steps. This is the BPM Toolkit data model. These are your custom request list, for instance, and these are the table in the BPM Toolkit. So your custom request become a case, and the case generate a case lifecycle. Okay, there are more to say about this, but okay, let's focus to the essential. So this is a test environment. So I've took screenshot. It's faster than live demos, and there are three parts here. The workflow command center, which is a place where people who manage the business process, so here HR officer, for instance, can follow all the business process and can take ownership of one business process. Okay, here you have your dashboard. The dashboard is the place where any employee can go, and that's where people can follow their approval. They can approve also. They can have sometimes things to approve if they are managers, but they can also follow the request they've done. They can see exactly where the request is. They can also delegate the request there. And this is one form that employee can use to submit part-time requests. So you have to create your own custom form, and it can be compatible with the BPM Toolkit, right? So let's take a look at one form. Let's take a look at the whole business process. So an employee wants to have a part-time. So it click on this form. This is a Power Apps form, and it filling the form. So the form detail is not very important here. It's like a wizard. It works in mobile. They have 60 different forms. Well, 60 different applications. Okay, let's go to the next one. I want 3 years. Blah blah blah. Okay. Okay. Last screen. I can save it as a draft, and later on, if I want, I can edit this and submit that to the workflow, or I can submit that to the workflow. The forms knows which workflow it needs to target. So the developer knows which workflow this form needs to target. Of course, the workflow is being predefined by the business. The user can put new extra people into the pipeline, but by default in the workflow, a pipeline has been predefined. Okay, so form is submitted. So next, the employee submit his form. Next, HR can get to the workflow command center. When I say HR, you can use that for any field, not just HR. You can use that for finance, you can use that for legal, for whatever you want. So they go to workflow command center, and they can see all the business process. Each line is a business process. They can filter on the business process. They can search. You see, there are many filters. I've put additional filter, like one that show all the bottlenecks. We don't see that here. I will show that in the live version. I have the live version here. This is the live version. You see, this is the one used by my customer in test. When you click on bottleneck, you can see all the workflow that are late. And then you can work on this. So the system is smart enough to show you the bottleneck. So let's go back to the slide. And this is the business process that the employee did submit. And depending on the workflow, of course, it will have to go to the following steps. And it's waiting here. This one is orange, right? So it's waiting here. So only HR can see this. So there are, of course, other business process here. You see this one is green on this step. That means this teams here has approved it. And this guy, this is a person, did reject, it's red, and the business process is waiting here, you see. And this one here, you see, the business process is waiting here for this person to approve. So this is a person, this is a team. So you can have a mixture of person and teams. When I say team, it could be role, not just Microsoft Teams, right? And you see there is a star, meaning that the request has been sent to a first person, and this person put a delegation, so it has been redirected to this person here. You see, star means there was a delegation. Okay, so if HR take this, click on one of the business process, it will get this. And HR has several tools here. So for instance, HR can say, it's okay for me. So click on yes, I approve. So HR can do that because the person who's visualizing this is a member of this role, of course. Then he can accept or reject. There are more activities than just accepting or reject, you can see later on. But let's say this guy say it's okay for me. Then this becomes green and the system moves to the next step. So this will be the next approver. This, you see, is not a role. This one is a human. This is a role, HR. And of course, people can see the comment of the previous action. So now this guy will have to approve. This is a manager. Well, I will skip this because we don't have a lot of time, but let's go to the manager. The manager will get a notification, and the manager will click on the notification and will go to the dashboard. This is a dashboard, so everyone in the employee can get a dashboard. So basically, this replaces the approval center of Power Automate. And in this, people can follow the request that they submit. So I did submit an HR request, and the HR request is waiting for this guy to approve. So you will just see where the system is waiting for. You cannot see who did approve what, because that's kind of confidentiality for HR. But the employee can still follow the request. They can, if they want, they can cancel a request. So you ask for part-time, yes, but I can click on this and then the whole workflow will be stopped. And all the stakeholders who already have approved, for instance, will be informed. You see, so you can do that. So let's say you are a manager, you get an approval, you click on the approval, yes, no. You can get the details of the request. You can see the comment of the previous approvers. That's also very important. I want to approve, but I want to see the comment of the previous guys, of the previous reviewers. So you click here and you can see that in the pipeline, these people say yes or whatever you want. See, so based on the previous comments, you can approve. Also, if you want, you can add a delegation. I want to delegate my task to this person from this date to that date. So let's say you approve the request, okay, then you see it was waiting here, then it's there. Go to the next step. HR can take it, and HR can work on it. And let's say this person here, because this is a person, it's not a role, it's a manager, not a manager, does not react. Then HR can say, okay, let's skip it. Skip this step. Skip. Okay, it's skipped. In the new version, you will see skipped here. Now it's great. And you see now it's skipped and it's waiting for this team, this is a team, to react. And then HR officer can say, hey, I want to redirect this to another step. Here, for instance, I want to get back here. Just click there and redirect, and then the system will go there. So basically, we have a state machine. Don't buy Nintex for that. I love Nintex, by the way. So now we can also have go-to, like redirection. Let's say in the workflow, you can say, if this team say no, I want the system to skip this and to go there. So let's say this team say no. Okay, then this become red. So no, you can see the comment here. And now the system is waiting for here. All these steps have been skipped. You see? Now the question is, how can people define a workflow? I use a SharePoint list. I call that a meta workflow. In the SharePoint list, business can create a workflow like this. They can specify the step 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. They can specify the role. This is a role. This is another role. This is another role. You can provide. You can specify specific action, like I want a document to be generated. So you can have custom action. So there is an extensibility model. And you can also put go-to. You can say, if the status here is negative, I want to go there. This is this. So you have a state machine. You see? So here, you can also insert a step. The workflow is running, but you want to put another person in the pipeline just because you want. Click here. Well, HR can do that. Insert a new step. Specify the person. In the new version, you can put a message. And now you have a new step here. You see? So you can change the workflow in live mode. This, I think, we still have 20 minutes. Sharon, is that correct?
Go for it, Serge. Really interesting stuff.
We have 10 or 15 minutes, so we still have.
You can overrun if you like. This is just too good.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so this concept here, permission matrix, is very, very, very important. What is it? Well, actually, HR. There are many HR teams. Here you see we have HR in Brussels, HR in Maastricht in Holland, HR in Paris. They cannot manage the same type of request. So you must be able to apply some security. And also, look at this. HR in Brussels, when it comes to work time and leave requests, can read and write requests made by employee in Brussels and employee in Luxembourg. But HR in Maastricht, people specialized in work time and leave requests, can only read and write, and of course approve, requests coming from Maastricht. Same for Paris. You see, so the permission matrix can be complex. That's the real world. I mean, so I was surprised. Yes, but that's our world. That's how it is. and it's not just in HR. So you must be able to implement that in the BPM toolkit. So I won't show you how I did it, but you don't have to write code. I mean, you just need to configure a request in a way that this permission matrix will be followed. You see, when I showed this tool to the Power Automate team, they were very enthusiastic. But one of the first questions was, "Hey, why don't you put a link to RPA? I want the BPM toolkit to be able to call an action running on the desktop, to call a legacy application running on the desktop." Okay, so I don't have the time to do the demo. This is the link to YouTube where I illustrate that the BPM toolkit can call a .NET application. You can see here. At some point, it call it take information, it fill it into this .NET application, it close the .NET application, and it goes to the next step. So it works. Now, many people ask the question, what's the technology behind? So first, everything is based on Power Automate and Power Apps, right? I'm not using the Power Automate approval system because due to its limitation. So I call flows like Azure Functions, if you want. It's such function that I call. I could have done that in .NET, but honestly, using Flow or Power Automate to do that was way faster. Okay, it's faster, I mean. And here's the architecture. At the moment, the more advanced version of BPM Toolkit work on top of SharePoint Online, but I have an alpha version that run on top of Dataverse, previous name was CDS. On top of that, I could have chosen Logic Apps, but I've chosen Power Automate. Honestly, that's exactly the same. Okay, so I mean, I use Power Automate as much as I can. There's no benefit for me of using Logic Apps. There are core components in the BPM toolkit. I won't go through all these core components, but you can see that there is a security module. There is a task delegation module. There is a workflow generator. There is a runtime, which allow you to go backward, forward, that understand a set of verbs, analytics, tracing, archiving, etc. So these are the core components. And of course, on top of that, I have UI component, like the process dashboard that you have seen. And this UI component call proxy flows, and the proxy flow call the backend flow here. And this calling a flow that call another flow allow me to provide elevation of privilege, right, in the backend flow. So overall, I have something like, no, I have 95 flows, okay, 95 flow. At that time, it was 71, but I've refactored that. So now it's 93 or 94. 3 Power Apps, Canva apps. The logic is the following. When a case is submitted, the system call a component called the workflow launcher that analyze the workflow defined by the business. And then we call a step generator that generates step in a SharePoint list or in Dataverse. And this triggers the workflow runtime. So basically, in a nutshell, that's how it works. You see? Also, very important, because Sharon find that interesting. So when you have almost 100 flows running in production, 24, you need to find a way to manage that. So I'm working, and this is this, on a monitoring module, which is generic. It's called Pulse. And here you can see, so Pulse check all the workflow, make sure that all the workflow are up and running, because some workflow might be stopped, right? Suspended for any reason. So it check all the time that all the workflow are running. If one of them is not running, it try to restart it 2 times. So if there is an error somewhere, we can see, hey, at that time there was an error. This is the business case. So you can see the impact on the business of this technical issue. The flow is this one. You get the trace. So when you click on the trace, you will go directly to the debugger, where you can pinpoint the issue. Let's go to the debugger. So all the flow have a centralized error handling. You see, so the error in this flow was here. You see? So I have a centralized system that allow you to manage that. And look at this. Look at this. What's this? Yeah, look, at that time, this day, the system found out that this flow was suspended. So, and it tried to restart it automatically. See? So the system is self-monitoring or self-healing if you want. Okay. So regarding the version, there is BPM Toolkit for SharePoint. That's the version that is on GitHub. There is an alpha version of BPM Toolkit for Dataverse and one for Teams. I mean, Dataverse for Teams. Okay, storage for this one is SharePoint list. This one is Dataverse, and this one is, of course, Dataverse for Teams. But I have a set of limitations regarding permission in Dataverse for Teams because I need a very granular permission for HR. You see, so this is still in public preview. Normally, it should be in production in May, so this month. My customers are testing it intensively. This one is alpha, test March, and maybe production in June. Same here. You can find the tool in GitHub here. This is the link. You will get a setup guide, a developer guide. And if you want videos that illustrate the BPM Toolkit, you can get there. So one that describes the features and one that describes with more details the architecture. And I think we reached the end of the session.
That's awesome, Serge. I was going to ask you for those links. So what we'll do when we put this up on YouTube, we'll put those links in the comments as well so that people can easily get to the GitHub repo for that. Thank you, Bill. So Bill's put in a comment, amazing and all free, truly fabulous and inspirational, Serge. Thanks for the demo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. For us to mere mortals to get my head around it all. I mean, it is. Serge, this is something that arguably should already be in the Power Platform. Do you think this is an evolution of the Power Platform? We're going to go this way and include these features? Or do you think it's going to be quite a while this kind of functionality is arguably missing?
Honestly, I don't know. That's why I put it in open source to make sure that people can use it and they have the source code. Normally, that's something we expect since the early beginning, right? So that's something we have been asking for to the Power Platform team to provide. I mean, that's really basic. I mean, having a state machine, having workflow that run for more than 30 days, that's basic. So honestly, I don't know if we'll get this feature. Mm-hmm. I was not supposed to do that. I mean, that's supposed to be done by Microsoft. Of course, I've used different patterns because, I'm not using their own out-of-the-box approval system, which is actually fine in many situations, right?
For the majority of situations,
for the majority of situations, but not for complex business process, not for BPM situations, so business process management project. I mean, it's not. So there is an alternative, and you can still keep using the Power Platform. You don't have to buy Nintex or Webcon or other very nice tools, by the way, just to be able to implement complex business process. So, I mean, in a way, Microsoft can be happy because people can stay in their own platform. And it works very well. I mean,
the fact that we're bringing this into the low code side of things, is really important because largely that BPM it's buried deep into coded solutions like Appian, etc. So the fact that you're bringing this forward into a low code solution, I think, is really, really important. And I kind of agree with Bill there. Once you get your head around it, it's relatively logical what you've done here, and again, should be evolutionary as part of either the product itself or maybe some of this, like your Pulse there, almost feels like it belongs in the center of excellence, right?
Yeah, actually, that's true. That's correct. Also, one very important reason for keeping that in the Power Platform, because I could have used .NET, I mean, Azure Function or Node.js. One good reason is that it's compliance and security, because in the Power Platform, you have DLP component. You have some compliance, so your product will run in a kind of sandbox, if you want, which is kind of protected. So this is under control. I mean, so it's a more secure way to achieve this kind of,
And you're leveraging that kind of internet connectivity, right, of the Office 365 fabric that sits there. I mean, you really are putting a complex layer on using the tools that we've been given. So really awesome stuff. And I think a lot of businesses are shouting out for this. Certainly the more complex your process gets, the harder it is to see how you're going to be attaching so many flows and Power Apps together to be able to achieve that. So I think what you've done here is simplified that by a model, a way of thinking. Yeah,
I didn't show that in detail, but there is a link with Teams, because for every type of case, a private team channel can be created where HR can openly discuss about the teams, right? So the system does that. So you just need to configure that for each type of request, and automatically HR have a team for each type of request if they want. You see, so using Teams is also very important in this kind of business scenario, but it must be secure channel, because it's very sensitive information.
You've actually answered my question on that, because I was going to ask you what have you put under the hood? Is this SharePoint? Is this CDS? And what's the ability to go into Teams? But you're already there. So that was really nice to see.
Yeah, well, actually, yes, this version is based on SharePoint in terms of storage. But I will provide the two data storage, which is Dataverse and SharePoint. But with SharePoint, it's still very rock solid, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you're leveraging the advantages of the platform and that interconnectivity, so that we don't have issues around, the simple stuff that you get when you're doing app development, authenticating the user, etc. Gone, because you're doing that internal leveraging, which is really, really important. And it stops organizations having to go and look for, exactly as you said, another tool, whatever that tool is, because we have all of this built in. It's just having the imagination of how you can make it do what you want it to do, which obviously you have, and you
using different patterns. Yes.
Yeah. This is exactly that. It is a pattern that we need to get a bit more visibility of. So it's great that you're showing this to everybody here. Thank you so much for coming and doing this for us. It's a great update to the stuff that you've shown us previously, and you can really see how the tool is coming along.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me.